I'm Joel Walley. I'm the writer and composer of this show, When the Daffodil Blooms. Being chosen as a part of KC Fringe, and then every step after that, it's been great and also stressful. Writing a show is very very vulnerable, and storytelling, you have to draw on a part of yourself. And so that's been a challenge, but something that I've tried to embrace and really make this story true to myself as well as everyone involved, and letting everyone's voice come into this story and tell the story that we create together.
Joel and I met in college at SBU, and we started working together in a directing class we took together. And we really enjoyed working together and sort of beginning to develop our own sort of directing and devised style.
That has influenced my writing as well, in writing a show that has room for changes.
This is really the first, I would say, true playground project where we've really brought all of our ideas together under the umbrella title of the playground.
For this show, casting any gender for any people for the different characters, and rearranging music and voices depending on who we cast, rather than writing something specific and casting those specific people. Writing something that allows anybody to come in and make it their own, and then honing that production towards those people that we have involved.
The biggest thing I would say is that the playground is artist-driven and artist-focused. I'm really passionate about actors and their abilities as artists, and I think everyone, whether they be behind the scenes or on stage in every production, brings so much.
I really love how unorthodox this process has been, and how it's been more about instinct and intuition and receiving what's coming from the ether, the universe around us, and from each other, and from our individual universes, to really build this magical thing out of nothing. And I think that that's the beauty of art.
I have to figure out how to do things on the fly. I have to figure out, why does my character feel this way? How does my character do this? But it also leads to a lot more emotional moments, I feel, because I don't get to plan ahead anymore. I don't get to know exactly how things are going to shake out, which I think leads to a lot more real of a reaction, and a lot more real, it's not so much acting anymore. It's just something that is happening to me, because Echo and I are basically the same person, getting the same information, we're getting the same reactions.
It feels very at home for me, especially doing it with this group of people. I feel so safe around them that I really feel like I can experiment and just be myself. And that's something that they really emphasize too in the playground. It's like, we're not just in an empty space. Each of us brings our own unique ideas, personalities, movement styles, even the way that we breathe or walk, and we get to recognize those rhythms and almost reverb off of each other. And I think that's really powerful and fun.
I love doing Fringe shows because there's this room for play, there's this room for experimentation. And I feel like Soph, our director, is doing a great job about kind of bringing out the parts in us rather than becoming characters.
Do you ever just stare into a mirror like it's a window?
That is a window.
Okay, yeah, this is a window. But don't look through the window. Look at the reflection.
What I like specifically about the story of Narcissus and Echo and was drawn to is that it's a story that explores themes of gender and sexuality, which are really personal to me and to Joel, but it doesn't have a lot of explicit themes that you get in a lot of those types of stories. I feel like it ends very open-ended and it leaves a lot to be desired.
What we think of with Narcissus and narcissism is this love of self, and that is something that I play a lot with in the story. But what drew me to it was this idea of a lot of what formed Narcissus as a character was other people having feelings for Narcissus that he did not reciprocate. And that's how a lot of people in the story, what shaped a lot of his identity was just the fact that he did not return feelings.
With this show, it just hits a nerve, it hits some emotions, it hits some very personal situations and interactions with lovers and people that I thought would be lovers that didn't have the same ideas as me, and people who thought that I would be their lover when I didn't have the same ideas as them. It just puts so much into perspectives.
So Echo starts off as this, she's a little two-faced, to be honest. And so she comes into the show and she's like got a lot of hands in different pots. She's got her friends that she's trying to like keep on the down low, but she's also lying to another person that knows her really well. And there's a big, like, everyone finds out, and then Echo's in the middle of it for having lied. And so after that is when Nars comes in and kind of picks her up and dusts her off. And so she, I think, loses herself a little bit. You have this relationship with Narcissus that, in her eyes, is very romantic, is very, you know, touchy-feely. They're best friends, but they're also very close, and she sees it as more than that. And then in the end, the myth, it all falls apart.
Personally, I've really had a lot of fun with the musical influences that I've put into this show. This show for me has kind of been an exploration of my own musical and compositional voice, and playing with some other composers and ideas that I really like.
If only I could reach across, if only I could dance in there, if only I could reach across, if only I could dance in there, if only I.
So I've used The Waltz of the Flowers as kind of a basis for the score of When the Daffodil Blooms. It's kind of the world that we live in, that the characters live in, that kind of sets the tone. The flower imagery and symbolism plays a big role in this show and in the story of Narcissus, in where he is transformed into a narcissus flower or a daffodil. The other big element that's in the score is serialism. What really makes that distinct as its own voice, because it is just a compositional technique, is that it is atonal. It doesn't have a central chord progression or tonality, and so it really is noticeable to the ear that way. I hope for anyone who is really into Greek mythology, they'll get something cool out of this, seeing this take on it. I think for anyone who's really into music history and theory and composition will find this really interesting. But at the same time, I really think that anyone just coming in with no knowledge of the background of this will see the show for what it is and the storytelling for what it is, and get something new out of it, even if they have no idea of any of the background.